Hello, everyone. Of social work students because I almost pursued an MSW, but then decided to do law instead because, well, basically I was in Arizona, and I was working with Central American refugees, and I had always been really interested in social work and social services, but then I met a group of lawyers who were assisting people with their legal issues, and I thought, law probably better combines my interest in domestic issues, international issues, social work, direct services, policy, all of the advocacy,
right.
all in one package, probably better than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like I kind of dabble in social work, although I'm not really trained, but just, a lot of my clients have issues that require kind of beyond legal. So
Right.
helping to connect people with others in the community who can help meet their needs puts me in contact with a lot of social workers. But that was it. And so we moved to Hawaii in 1995 when my husband started a job at UH Manoa. Went to law school from 96 to 99, and then really I went to law school because I wanted to do immigration law.
Okay. So why immigration law? What about it is appealing to you?
Yeah, I think I like the international issues that it brings in.
Okay.
It's just constantly interesting and challenging, and I spent some time in Central America and was really concerned about immigrant issues, and so immigration law again just combined
Okay.
all of those in a pretty nice, tight little package.
Okay. And is all of your practice? I don't even know how law works. So is all of your practice around immigration?
That's all I do.
Okay.
So when anyone asks me about anything else, I
Right.
say, you know what, I don't know.
Okay.
Because I really don't know. And what I guess I didn't understand until I probably started practicing is how specialized so many attorneys are. And people only do maybe family law.
Okay.
Or people only do, real estate law or contracts, and there's very little cross.
Okay.
There are a few attorneys locally who do immigration law who also do family law and criminal law. That would be too much for me to try to fit into my headspace.
Okay.
I don't feel like I could do all of those and do them well. Some can, a lot can't, but it just made more sense. Immigration law, and I think the beginning of the chapter starts. It's incredibly complex, and it's constantly changing. And even some of the questions that the students posed, all of that's in flux right now.
Okay.
And so I think just keeping up with immigration law is
Challenging.
for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then let's get into the questions.
Great.
And so they're not in particular order. That would have been better if I kind of started macro down to micro questions, but some of it. So in the beginning, the question is, what are the general pathways to citizenship? And then, time-wise, kind of what are the quickest paths to citizenship?
And this is also covered, I did take a perusal through the chapter that was in the which was really excellent, and I actually learned a bit from reading that. So generally a citizen, if you're born in the United States, you're a citizen. If you are born someplace else and you don't have a parent who's a citizen to try to piggyback onto, then you need to generally get a green card first, which is a permanent residency. And so you generally get permanent residency either through a family member, a close family member who files a petition for you, or through employment. Generally, though, it's through family. Employment is it's complicated and very limited, and most people don't qualify. So after you have say if you marry a U.S. citizen and you have a lawful entry to the United States, you can generally apply for permanent residency, and after you have your green card for 3 years, if you're still married to the same person, then you can apply for citizenship.
Okay.
If you get your green card generally any other way, through a more distant family member, or if you got it through marriage and then you're divorced, or if you got it through a job, or through if you were a human trafficking victim or a crime victim who was able to eventually get a green card, all of those classes takes 5 years.
Okay.
After permanent residency to apply for citizenship.
So the shortest one is marriage.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And then I've had students who've come because of lotteries, like from
Yeah, the green
India,
card lottery. The
right,
green card
what's
lottery,
that?
which the Trump administration and the Republicans want to get rid of.
Okay,
So it's called the diversity lottery. It's been around for, I don't know, 20, 30 years, if I'm correct. And I don't recall the number. I've had quite a few clients who I've helped apply for naturalization who I always say, well, how did you get your green card? And I've probably had 5 in my whole
okay,
year, and all my years of practice, who got their green cards through the diversity lottery. So basically, there are countries that are considered underrepresented as
Okay.
far as immigrant numbers, and so it is a way for, you have to have a certain education level, and I believe a certain, actually I'm not 100% sure about the income level, but definitely an education level. And then it's a free application. You apply online, and then if you're chosen, there's a number, and then it's a process,
Okay,
and then
okay.
there are many more people who apply than get it. So it's really also called kind of the golden ticket, because
Okay.
again, the pathways generally to permanent residency are through a family member, and you either have it or
Right,
you don't,
right.
or through employment. And
Which-
usually those
right.
are only people who are super highly skilled or kind of at the very top of their game in whatever they do. So if you're like a super athlete, you can get a green card.
Right, okay.
Right, or a super
Computer tech.
computer
person,
tech,
and-
right? But you
Okay.
really have to be really, really, really at the top. Academics are easier, but again, academics, if they are, very well published, and it's a lot. It's
Okay.
a lot to show.
Okay.
And then another way of getting a green card is through it's called the EB-5 program, which is basically, it's kind of a way of buying a green card. If you invest between $500,000 to $1 million, I don't do those at all.
Okay.
And they're very tricky, and you have to show that you are creating jobs for at least 10 U.S. citizens. So
Okay.
it's a long process, but there is, and other countries, Australia has something similar too. I'm not sure about Canada, where, look, those with economic advantages are privileged, and those who are economically disadvantaged are
The paths are much
much
right,
different.
narrow
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Are parents of children who are born here naturally citizens?
No, not at all.
Okay.
And that's a good question, and it helps clear up a big misconception. So no, just because you have a child here absolutely does not make you a U.S. citizen. When that child turns 21, the child can file a petition for a parent. Okay, but it's whether there's anything that it can actually do through. Okay, let me kind of go back. So generally, if you're getting immigration status through a family member, the family member, and it can only be, it's limited to spouses, parents, adult children, or brothers or sisters.
Okay.
Okay.
And is that the new change, or no? That's been that way for a while.
That's
Okay,
been there,
got
that's
it.
been there for
Okay.
a while.
Okay.
One of the changes proposed eliminates some of those classes.
Okay.
So for example, brothers and sisters could not petition
Okay,
for each
okay.
other. Or one of the ones that I think is kind of bizarre and cruel would be that U.S. citizens cannot petition for their parents,
Oh, okay.
which just seems odd, because the parent-child, even if the child's an adult relationship, is of course so important. So there is a proposal. It's called the RAISE Act. I'm not sure where it is right now,
Okay.
but it's been proposed, and it's out there.
Okay.
But it's often a two-step process, where you have the petitioner, or the U.S. citizen, or permanent residents can file in some cases, has to file a petition, and then once that petition's approved, then you can generally go ahead and the second step is applying for permanent residence. And if the
Okay.
person's overseas, there's a way of doing that processing through the consulate, and that's called consular processing. If the person's in the United States, it goes through U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. And just because everyone doing this is local, just to let people know that the USCIS office is located at Restaurant Row. So down at the corner
Okay.
of Ala Moana and Punch Bowl. Actually, I don't think it's called Restaurant Row anymore, but that's what
Right.
people know it is. ICE office for Immigration and Customs Enforcement is also located on Ala Moana, almost right across the street at 595 Ala
Okay.
Moana. It's kind of an old historic building, and it says Department of Homeland Security in front. The Immigration Court, we have 2 full-time immigration judges in Honolulu, and they're based at the Federal Building. So it's kind of this corner down at around Ala Moana and Punch Bowl where it all happens. 8th floor of the Federal Building, 2 full-time judges, and then detainees are held at the Federal Detention Center, which is, it's next time you're out at the airport, look right behind the Inner Island Terminal, and there is a 7-story cream color building that's been there about 15 years, and that's the Federal Detention Center.
Okay.
So immigration detainees are held there. That's the majority of people are not immigration detainees, but that's where they're held.
Okay.
It's a big issue on the continental U.S. where there are these, kind of private prisons and
Right,
jails
right.
that are holding immigrant detainees, especially families, and very controversial, and the conditions are really bad. We don't have privately contracted in Hawaii. It used to be before the Federal Detention Center, people would be sent to the continent if they had pretty serious crimes.
Okay.
Now everything's, which is better. Everyone's locally, and conditions at the detention center are generally good.
Okay.
It's not a hotel, but
Right,
generally
right.
good. So those are kind of some of the players. And then
Okay.
Customs and Border Protection is also part of Homeland Security. And if you fly internationally and then you come back into the United States, you go through Customs and Border Protection, and they're also part of the Department of Homeland Security. And they have the power to detain and to deny entry to people as well. So it's kind of a big picture.
Right.
In that question. So one other thing about if it's a child, so the question about if you have a child who's a U.S. citizen, are you a U.S. citizen? No. The other thing is that if you are a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident, but especially a U.S. citizen, and you're married to someone else, people often think that confers automatic.
Right.
Nothing's automatic unless you're born in the United States, right? Or unless in some cases your parents are U.S. citizens. If you are a U.S. citizen and you're married to what's called a foreign national, or the immigration law calls people aliens, which just is a term that I don't like to use. But you have to go through the process of filing the visa petition, filing the application for adjustment of status. There was one question about the cost of citizenship.
Right. Yeah.
And let me also, so the cost of just getting a green card through a family member in the United States, if the person qualifies, just the filing fees alone are $1,760, $1,760.
Wow.
The person also needs a medical exam, which is about $300 through a special list of doctors. And the price for naturalization, for citizenship, that application fee is $725.
Okay. And that's without any lawyer help fees.
Right, exactly.
That's okay.
All the forms are available online. They're fillable online. If people, after this have more specific questions, I mean, people can also always contact me, but the uscis.gov website for Citizenship and Immigration Services is actually super helpful, and the instructions are really, really good. And I will often, if people want to do the work on themselves, by themselves, I'll tell people it's kind of like taxes. If you want to take the time and read through, and if your English is good and you can pay attention to detail, you can probably do it on your own.
Okay.
But I don't want to do my own taxes. I have no interest in reading that. So I hire someone to do that. And so lots of times with immigration, it's kind of the same thing. Or people will start on their own and realize that that's really complicated. And one of the things that's also required for permanent residents is called an affidavit of support. And this is actually, especially for social workers, this is, the affidavit of support is this thing that catches a lot of my clients and causes a lot of problems, because it's an old requirement to basically to bar people from getting permanent residency who may become public charges.
Okay.
So it's all related to wealth, and it's called Form I-864, and the petitioner needs to show that he or she earns or has assets 5 times. It's a complicated scenario, but has let's say income that's at 125% at least of the federal poverty
Uh-huh.
guidelines for, and Hawaii has its own because the cost of living is higher here. Hawaii has its own, Alaska has its own, and the continental U.S. as a group have
Right,
their
okay.
own. And so you count family size. So some of my specific